The first snowfall of the season came early that year in Moose Hollow, a quiet, snowy town tucked away in the mountains of northern Vermont. Thick blankets of white coated the narrow roads and rooftops, turning everything into a postcard-perfect winter scene. But beneath the beauty, something strange was happening. Something that would rattle the entire town to its core. It started on a Monday night. Sheriff Alton Briggs, a 62-year-old lawman known for his calm, steady nature and his love of black coffee, received a call from an elderly woman named Clara Benton. "There's a dog," she said, her voice shaking. "A German shepherd. He's been scratching at the same cabin door every night since the snow started. He just sits there, like he's waiting for someone to answer." At first, Alton didn't think much of it. Probably a stray or someone's lost pet. But when the same call came again the next night, from a different neighbor, and then again the third night, something felt off. People had stopped going near the old cabin after the Johnsons left town. It had been sitting abandoned for years, windows boarded up, no electricity, no running water. Nobody should have been living there. And yet, the dog kept coming back, always at dusk, always scratching that door, with those same desperate, deliberate paws. And then, on the third night, things took a turn. Just past midnight, Sheriff Briggs was driving along Old Timber Road. When his headlights caught something moving up ahead, he stopped the cruiser. Through the flurrying snow, he saw him, a large German shepherd, thick fur matted with frost, pacing in front of the old Johnson cabin. The dog looked up, locked eyes with him, then turned and barked once, before going back to the door. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Alton stepped out of the car, the cold biting into his face like pins. "Hey there, buddy," he called, walking slowly. The shepherd barked again, then sat down, tail sweeping the snow behind him. Alton knocked on the door. No answer. He tried the knob, locked. He crouched beside the dog, eyeing the scratches on the door. Fresh. Deep. "What are you trying to tell me, boy?" The dog whined, then scratched again, harder this time, more frantic. Alton felt his chest tighten. There was something inside that cabin, and whatever it was, the dog hadn't given up on it for 3 nights straight. Sheriff Briggs pulled out his flashlight and circled the cabin. Snow crunched underfoot. Wind howled through the trees. The windows were still boarded. But then, a thin stream of smoke curled faintly from the rusted chimney. Impossible, since there hadn't been power or gas for years. Something wasn't right. He radioed back to dispatch. "Nancy, I need backup out at the old Johnson property. Bring animal control, and maybe EMS too, just in case." Then he returned to the front. The German shepherd was now pawing at the ground, nose pressed against the bottom of the door. Suddenly, he let out a long, sorrowful howl, one that echoed through the silent woods, like a mourning song. Alton's gut twisted. 10 minutes later, Deputy Kayla arrived. "Sheriff, what's this about a dog scratching doors?" "Not just any dog," Alton said. "He's been coming here for 3 nights. Same door, same time. He won't leave it alone." Together, they pried the lock loose and pushed the old door open. The scent hit them instantly. Mildew, damp wood, and something else. Something faint but alarming. "Smells like kerosene," Kayla muttered. The shepherd darted in ahead of them, barking sharply, running to the far back room. Alton followed, heart pounding. Inside the room, a collapsed pile of old furniture, dust-covered tarps, and a trapdoor. The dog barked again, clawing at it furiously. Kayla shone her flashlight. "There's someone down there." The dog growled softly, ears perked. Alton knelt, pulling the heavy trapdoor open. What he saw made him freeze. Below, in the dark root cellar, were 2 small eyes, looking up at him. "Help," came a whisper. "Please." Alton's heart nearly stopped. He and Kayla scrambled down into the cramped cellar, flashlights flickering over stone walls and damp wooden beams. Curled in the corner, shivering under a torn blanket, was a little girl, no older than 7. Her cheeks were sunken, her lips blue, her tiny fingers clutched a worn teddy bear that looked just as broken as she did. "Oh, my lord," Kayla breathed. "Sweetheart, it's okay. We're here to help." The girl didn't move. just stared wide-eyed past them, toward the dog. The German shepherd let out a quiet whimper and padded down the creaky steps behind them. His tail wagged gently. When he reached her, she reached out weakly and buried her face in his fur. "His name's Ranger," she whispered. "He saved me." Alton turned to Kayla, his voice sharp. "Get the medics, now!" As Kayla rushed back up, Alton wrapped his coat around the girl. "You're safe now, sweetheart. You're gonna be all right. What's your name?" "Emily," she whispered. "He found me. He stayed." Her eyelids fluttered. She was fading fast. Within minutes, EMTs arrived and carried the girl out on a stretcher, wrapping her in blankets, warming her with portable heaters. Ranger trotted beside her the entire way, never taking his eyes off her. "How did she get here?" one of the paramedics asked. "We don't know yet," Alton said, glancing at the cabin again. "But this dog wouldn't let her die in the cold." The news spread fast. A girl found alive in an abandoned mountain cabin. After a brutal snowstorm, it made every headline from Boston to Toronto. But for Alton and Kayla, the mystery had only begun. At the hospital, doctors confirmed Emily was severely malnourished, frostbitten in several places, and had clearly been alone for days, possibly a week, but she survived. Thanks to Ranger, a search of the property turned up no food, no adult belongings, and no signs anyone else had been living there. Just a mattress in the cellar, an old camping lantern, and a pile of empty water bottles. "Where did she come from?" Kayla asked. "There haven't been any missing child reports." Alton nodded slowly. "And how did the dog find her?" "They ran Ranger's microchip. His name was indeed Ranger, registered 6 years ago in Connecticut, to a woman named Rachel Kerrigan. Rachel had died 3 years prior. The record showed the dog had been sent to a shelter, but no trace since. So how did he end up in Vermont?" Kayla asked. No one knew. What was clear, though, was that Ranger had crossed miles of snowy forest, found the girl in that cabin, and refused to leave her, not once. And as the days passed, and Emily slowly began to recover, the truth would come out. Peace. By haunting peace. Because Emily remembered something else. Someone else had locked that trapdoor, and they hadn't wanted her to be found. Emily didn't speak much in those first days. Doctors said it was likely trauma or shock. But when she did talk, it was always about Ranger. "He brought me food once," she said softly, clutching her teddy bear from the woods. "I think it was a sandwich. It was squishy." Kayla and Alton sat beside her in the hospital room, gently coaxing more information from her. Over the next 2 days, "Emily," Kayla asked kindly, "do you remember how you got to that cabin?" Emily stared out the window, snowflakes spiraling down outside. "A man," she said at last. "He had a red truck. He told me we were going to find my mommy, but he lied." That one sentence made the hairs rise on Alton's neck. Emily continued, barely above a whisper. "He locked me down there. He said I had to be quiet. Then he left, and never came back." "Did you know him, sweetie?" Kayla asked. She shook her head. "He smelled like gas, and his boots were muddy. They brought in a sketch artist." Emily's description was vague. "A man with a beard, a red cap, and a faded jacket." But it was a start. Meanwhile, Ranger never left her side. Nurses tried to keep him out of the room. But every time they did, Emily cried until he came back. "He's my hero," she whispered. He came back every night, and scratched until someone listened. Alton was still trying to understand how Ranger even knew Emily was there. The terrain around the cabin was deep forest, cut off by snowdrifts and fallen trees. He would have had to cross at least 15 miles of icy wilderness to reach town. "There's no logical explanation," Kayla said. "This dog, he didn't just find her. He chose her, and that wasn't all." Because later that evening, a knock came at the sheriff's office door. A hunter had found something deep in the woods, just 3 miles from the cabin, a child's pink backpack, and inside it was a note. The note was scribbled on crumpled paper, written in a child's messy handwriting. The ink had bled from the snow, but one sentence was still legible. "If someone finds this, my name is Emily and I need help." Alton held the note in his gloved hands. His jaw tightened. She must have thrown it out when she heard someone walking past, he muttered. Smart girl. The backpack also contained a juice box, an unopened granola bar, and a plastic charm bracelet, cracked but still intact. She must have packed it when she was taken, Kayla said. Maybe he let her bring it, to trick her into thinking it wasn't a kidnapping. They logged it as evidence, and word went out to the State Bureau and FBI. They were officially dealing with an abduction. But the more Alton thought about it, the less it made sense. Why leave her alive? Why hide her in an abandoned cabin, then vanish? They showed Emily the bracelet. Her eyes lit up. That's mine. Ranger found it for me. He brought it to the trap door. I think he was trying to make me smile. Alton stared at the dog, who now lay curled at Emily's feet. The girl wasn't exaggerating. The dog hadn't just discovered her. He'd been taking care of her, bringing her comfort, keeping her alive. But then came the question they'd been dreading. Sheriff, Kayla said, closing the office door behind her. What if the man who took her is still out there? Alton nodded grimly. Then we need to find him, before he finds her again. Because if Ranger hadn't scratched that door, she might have died in the cold, alone, forgotten. But now that she was alive and able to talk, someone dangerous was probably watching, and they wouldn't be happy she'd survived. 4 days later, the red truck was found. It was parked deep off an old snow-covered logging road, camouflaged by pine branches, no plates. The interior smelled of gasoline and rot. And in the glove compartment, a single photo. A Polaroid. Emily, asleep in the cabin basement. A blanket over her shoulders. The image had a timestamp, just 9 days earlier. Whoever took this was there recently, Kayla said. Sheriff Alton stood silent in the snow, scanning the tree line. The man hadn't just dumped her. He'd been watching, maybe coming back every few days, which begged one terrifying question. Was he planning to return? That night, Alton had officers quietly surround the old Johnson cabin again. A trap had to be set. Ranger, always near Emily, began acting strange, barking at windows, whining at the door. He paced constantly, tail stiff, ears up. He knows something, Alton muttered. They put hidden cameras around the cabin. Ranger insisted on staying. The first night, nothing. The second night, a fox. But the third night, exactly 1 week after Emily was found, the cameras caught movement. A man, hood up, bearded. He circled the cabin twice, then tried the door. When it wouldn't open, he kicked it once, then vanished into the woods again. He had come back. For her, the man's face was partially obscured in the footage, but Tex managed to enhance one frame. A tattoo, barely visible under his glove. A crude snake wrapped around a wrench. Kayla found a match in the system. Curtis Mays, 39, a drifter, mechanic by trade, arrested twice for unlawful confinement, no fixed address, last seen in northern Massachusetts. Why Emily? Kayla asked. What's the connection? Alton had a theory, but it was too dark to say out loud, until he got the call. One of the local nurses, Joan, had just remembered something. Emily had arrived at the hospital wearing a small bracelet, made of hospital-grade plastic. It wasn't from us, she said. So I checked. The code matched a pediatric emergency visit in Boston. 7 months earlier, the patient, Emily Carter. The mother, Jane Carter. Status deceased. Alton's blood ran cold. Who had custody after the mother died? Joan hesitated. According to records, no one claimed her. But someone did, Alton growled. The pieces clicked. Curtis Mays had dated Jane Carter briefly. He wasn't the father. But after her death, maybe he took the child, illegally, off the books. No one noticed, because no one was looking. Until now, Alton said. And now we're going to find him. And this time, they wouldn't just wait in the snow. This time, they had Ranger on their side. By morning, the snow had picked up again, thick flakes falling like feathers across Moose Hollow. Search teams were deployed, with snowmobiles and canine units. But it was Ranger who led the way. Alton didn't fully understand it, but the dog had something special, an instinct, a bond, maybe even something more. Every time they hesitated at a fork in the trail, Ranger seemed to know which way to go, his nose low, his ears back, his pace urgent. Wherever he is, Alton said. Ranger's going to find him. Sure enough, 2 hours into the search, the dog stopped near an old ranger outpost, abandoned decades earlier, and almost buried in snow. Ranger growled softly, then barked once. Alton raised a hand, signaling silence to his team. The group crept closer. No visible tracks in the snow, but fresh boot prints inside. Curtis Mays was here. Alton peeked through a cracked window. Inside, the place was a mess of old tools, rusted lanterns, and a makeshift cot. But most chilling of all was the wall covered in newspaper clippings and photos. All of Emily. One was even from the hospital lobby, just 2 days earlier. He's been watching, Kayla whispered. Suddenly, a rustle. Curtis bolted from the back exit, charging into the woods. But Ranger exploded after him like a bullet, barking wildly. Let him lead, Alton yelled. Sprinting behind, the chase was wild, ducking branches, sliding over icy slopes, boots cracking frozen brush. Curtis tried to double back, but Ranger cut him off, snarling, snapping, driving him toward a clearing, then tackle. Ranger lunged, teeth catching the man's coat, dragging him to the snow. By the time Alton arrived, Curtis was pinned under a furious growling shepherd, hands raised. All right, he screamed. Alton cuffed him on the spot. You're under arrest for kidnapping and child endangerment, he said coldly. And you're lucky this dog got to you before I did. Ranger backed away, only when Alton gave the word. Curtis looked up, bleeding and gasping. It's just a girl. She was alone. I gave her a place. Alton cut him off with a glare. You gave her a prison. Curtis was taken into custody and transferred to federal agents the next morning. Emily's true identity was confirmed, and arrangements were made to place her with a loving foster family until further relatives could be found. But the heart of the story, the one that made national news, was Ranger, the dog who refused to give up, who braved the snow, guarded her in silence, and scratched until someone listened. Reporters flooded Moose Hollow, asking for interviews, but Emily, still recovering, had only one thing to say to the cameras. He's not just a dog, she said softly, stroking Ranger's fur. He's my guardian. Local sculptor Frank Donnelly even built a small bronze statue of Ranger in front of the sheriff's department. It depicted him mid-bark, paw raised against a door. The plaque read, "For the one who scratched loud enough to save a life." Alton stood beside Emily and Kayla at the unveiling, eyes misty. You think he knew she was in there? Kayla asked later. Alton nodded. I don't think. I know. Ranger was eventually adopted officially by Emily's new family, but the town of Moose Hollow considered him theirs too. On snowy GLM 49B days, you could still see him trotting through town, head held high, ears perked, and a little girl's hand resting gently on his back. And sometimes, just sometimes, he'd stop at an old cabin door, sniff, scratch, as if remembering the night. He saved a life. Winter melted slowly in Moose Hollow that year, revealing not just roads and rooftops, but hearts that had been frozen too. The townsfolk who once passed by the old Johnson cabin now left flowers there, small bundles tied with ribbon, or little dog treats tucked under the wooden porch. Ranger changed something in this place, Kayla said one morning, sipping coffee at Alton's desk. He reminded people what loyalty looks like, Alton replied. One by one, the townsfolk began opening up, not just to Ranger's story, but to one another. An elderly woman started volunteering at the shelter. A retired war veteran adopted a rescue dog. Local teens raised funds to repair the trail where Ranger tracked Curtis. A simple dog had reignited something in their town. As for Emily, her new home was in the care of a warm, childless couple from nearby Montpellier. They'd lost their own daughter years ago. But when they met Emily, they knew fate had brought them a second chance. Ranger, of course, came too. He won't let me sleep without him, Emily giggled one night. And when thunder rolled through the mountains, it was Ranger who climbed on her bed and curled beside her, keeping the nightmares at bay. And as for the door, the one he scratched for 3 nights straight, the town left it up, untouched, a monument to a mystery, a miracle. And to the dog, who simply refused to quit. Months later, as summer crept into Moose Hollow, Sheriff Alton stood by the old cabin once more. The snow was long gone, replaced by moss and wildflowers, but the scratches on the door remained, deep, carved with desperation and hope. He ran his fingers over them. 3 nights, he whispered. 3 nights you stood here. He turned to find Emily and Ranger standing nearby. She smiled, holding a bouquet of daisies. I wanted to leave these, she said, for the me I used to be, and for the dog who saved me. She placed the flowers gently by the step. Ranger barked once, then sat beside her, as proud as ever. Alton nodded slowly. You know, you saved her too, Emily. You didn't give up. You held on. She looked up at him, eyes gleaming. I had to. He believed in me. Together, the 3 stood in silence, and though the wind whispered through the trees, it was as if the woods were finally at peace, not because evil had been caught, but because love had been louder, because a dog's loyalty had shattered silence, and because one snowy night, a German shepherd scratched on a forgotten door and changed everything.